let's start with a little geography lesson, shall we? You may wonder why I had felt it necessary to teach a primary school topic, and trust me, it leaves me perplexed too. But after seeing that there is still a disappointingly large amount of people that think that Chinese is a language and people practice Hindi as a religion, I would just be contributing to the problem I'm trying to prevent if I were to not inform you all of this topic. If I were to not inform you all of the beautifully diverse cultures and ethnicities Asia is composed of. Is it not working again?
Yeah, it's not working again.
Oh, whatever. Now, I'm not even going to bother. Actually, no, this can't work without I'll do it another time. Actually, can you come help me, please?
It's worked out.
It works. Oh,
I fixed
it
it.
does.
I'm recording something.
Hurry.
It's not working.
Okay, I would just be contributing to the problem I'm trying to prevent if I were to not inform you all of the beautifully diverse cultures and ethnicities that Asia is composed of. Now, I'm not even going to bother mentioning China, Japan, or Korea to you, because after several occurrences of K-pop idols being worshipped by hysteric fangirls and innocent Japanese schoolgirls being ogled at by disgusting, stomach-churning 30-year-old men that still live with and mooch off of their mothers, I'd say you have at least some idea of who these three are. In fact, let's just completely annihilate all of this so that it'll make it less tedious and easier for me to apprise that Southeast Asians, such as Indonesians and Malaysians, Desis, such as South Asians like Pakistanis and Indians, and Middle Easterns, are all Asians and have the right to call themselves Asians. I take all the time you need to process it. It's one hell of a pill to swallow and digest. I know, a Qatari whose home country is Qatar, which is a country found in the continent of Asia, is apparently an Asian? Who'd have thunk? Now, moving on to the topic I can't believe I have to address because quite frankly it's 2017. Casual racism. While racism on its own is more shamelessly condescending and obnoxious, casual racism refers to, for instance, cops insisting that they're all for racial equality but allow white parents who literally imprison their children to be let off the hook, and arresting a single black mother for having no choice but to leave her kids for a mere 15 to 30 minutes so she could attend a job interview. There are, of course, many other disheartening forms of casual racism, including whitewashing in the media, a Latino's resume being chucked in the bin because of their name sounding too Spanish, and of course, the notorious All Lives Matter movement. Perhaps a textbook example of casual racism towards Asians is the mockery of Asian accents or even just the language in itself. Now me, being an Indonesian, I can personally and proudly say that I love my heritage. Our food is delectable, and I definitely believe that East Asians and South Asians should stop clawing at each other's throats with hateful stereotypes and realize that we're all on the same team. But I think the most vexing thing about being Asian is how others know that we know they know that that Asians are more susceptible to persecution and enmity given that the conversation of race is generally monochrome. So in other words, black and white. To reassure, I don't mean to say that the black community doesn't deserve the respect they're receiving. Actually, no, scratch that. I do mean to say that the black community doesn't deserve the respect they're receiving, because considering all the hate crimes that are on the rise after Donald Trump's presidency, proving that the fight for equality for black people alone is still a work in progress, they deserve much more than the respect they're receiving. However, because the main narratives of civil rights tend to center around the oppression of black people by white people, Asians and, of course, other minorities are very often left out. Growing up, it's important that the enslavement of black people is taught and pounded into every student, but although it's just as crucial that we don't forget to teach these kids about Japanese internment and the Chinese Exclusion Act. This exclusion of Asians in the media explains why it's so difficult for us to defend ourselves. Slavery has made it crystal clear that racism towards black people is wrong, and World War II and the Holocaust has made it very crystal clear that anti-Semitism towards Jewish people is also wrong. But despite the former and the latter being great achievements, we are unfortunately left with nothing. Not to mention, in many Asian cultures, children, and particularly the girls, are taught to be demure and avoid confrontation. So there are times when, because of how we had been raised, we feel uncomfortable standing up for ourselves, even if the environment is safe. What we as a society must understand is that Asians are no lesser or higher than any other oppressed groups of people. I personally would say that imitating an Asian's broken English is functionally identical to impersonating a sassy black woman. So why is the former more frequently ignored? Tell me, why do people understand that the latter is stereotypically racist, but don't bat an eye when an Asian is belittled for having not mastered their non-native language? Now, there are those who would protest and say, why can't I imitate Asian accents? Why can't it's done all the time with French and British. And all I have to say to that is, the connotations of French and British accents aren't scornful, disrespectful, or insulting like they are with Asian accents. In fact, they have been described time and time again to be charming and romantic. End of argument.